Hello everyone and welcome to game 1 in a series between Killer versus SuperNova here on Antigua Shipyard. We have Killer spawning as the blue Zerg here at what I'll call the 8 or 9 o'clock position. Meanwhile, cross spawns here as SuperNova spawning as the red Terran. So Terran versus Zerg. Seems to be a lot of Terran versus Zerg matchups. Not too many Protoss out there, so just trying to cast high quality games for you guys, and hopefully this game doesn't disappoint. Now, we've seen some minor shifts in the meta change as of late, as the games really come down to whether or not Terran can put down the harassment or keep up in terms of economy against a Zerg player. And then it does go into a rather long middle game to try and vie for position as Terran tries to choke down Zerg, make sure that they can't get any more expansions, and vice versa. Now, this is Antigua Shipyard, so the walking pass, there's not nearly as much room to flank. You can see that there's choke points all across the map here. Getting into the high ground is very important, as you do control and defend 2 expansions, or you can attack up to 2 expansions as well. We'll see what's happening here as a drone now making its way out from Killer. It looks as though this is going to be a forced cross spawn, and with a forced cross spawn, it does allow the drone to just simply make its way over, and perhaps allowing the Overlord to park itself right off over here and make sure that they can keep track of gas while still keeping that Overlord safe from any Marines. Drone making its way up the ramp now. You're going to see the drone just simply slip by, as there is currently no gas being harvested by SuperNova. Meanwhile, back over here by Killer went for a fast hatchery. I believe it was a 15 hatchery. And then we'll see whether or not he goes for the spawning pool or for that extractor. Looks like it will be spawning pool first. And we'll see if he does go for an extractor for delayed metabolic boost. Now, the drone is going to take a look around. The drone wants to make sure that there are no additional barracks. Perhaps he's going to attempt to also block a command center from coming in. SCV now making its way over, and the drone does stop it. The SCV does have a little bit more life, as the drone now forced to pull away. The drone really can't do much of anything there, as both players opting to go for an economic game, as this is forced cross spawns. Units will not be able to get up that ramp all too quickly. SCV now making its way up the ramp. It will spot this hatchery. There it is, and now make its way back in. It will also spot the spawning pool as well. I don't think SuperNova will be establishing a bunker anywhere, as it won't really work out for him. As SuperNova now making its way back down, drones should be transferred over here as well. If he does try to build a bunker, it may be a little bit difficult, especially with no Marines on the way. So it will just be a bunker on the ramp instead, as SuperNova is going to be even on bases. Even though this command center is a little bit later, it is still early enough to force Killer to either try to set up a macro hatch or perhaps try to set up an all-new expansion. SCV now getting picked apart. The Zerglings should be able to finish off in another 3 or 4 seconds. There's that final hit, taking down that scouting SCV, as we have now 3 Marines inside the bunker. Important to get 3 Marines early, as they can 2-shot an incoming Zergling. And now we do have an upgrade to an orbital command, and also going into the factory. So this looks like it will be a transition into reactor Hellion play. Not too strange of an opening, reactor Hellion play, but it wasn't the standard factory before the command center. It was command center first, so SuperNova is not too far behind economically speaking. Marines are attempting to back off now. You can see that the factory is about to be completed. A reactor does take 60 seconds, I believe. No, only 50 seconds to build. So by the time this factory lifts off, it will do a little bit of waiting, as we are now going into a starport as well. So a 1-1-1 build after a fast expansion attempt after the barracks. We'll see what's going to happen here, as Killer currently sitting on 34 drones compared to 24 SCVs. No macro hatch as of yet, but Killer is getting up a second queen at the natural expansion, so he may be getting a lot of queens here to defend against either Marines and also Banshees as well. You can see a tech lab is being built by that barracks, so it will be Hellions into most likely Banshees. unless he tries to go for some sort of Raven play, which wouldn't be too out of the ordinary, but isn't the standard openings that most Terran players go for at this stage. It looks like a Banshee will be trained. In addition to Cloak, the Overlord does spot this, and now you see a quick upgrade to Lair. Will also be able to upgrade and grab those Overseers in just a moment, and I believe the Banshee has already been cleaned up. You can see already deciding to go against it, not getting Cloak any longer, just getting Banshees, as now the Hellions put pressure onto that third base. Zerglings now trying to get him in for a flank and was almost able to do exactly that. The Hellions are split apart, and that is actually helping out a little bit, as perhaps it was going to cost a little bit or cause a little bit of a lineup there, as the Zerg did lose more Zerglings than the Hellions. So the Hellions now dealing more damage, putting a little bit of superficial damage onto that hatchery. It's still going to complete, as the Spine Crawler now comes in as well. Spine Crawler with that range of 7 will force all of these Hellions back. Even though there are 4, the Spine Crawler has rooted itself and is in very, very good position as the Queen now makes its way up to the ramp. There is a Banshee already over here, but it's not going to be enough, as the Banshee now going up against a Queen. The Hellions now trying to make their way in. The Hellions got in some damage as well. What's going to happen here, as, oh, the Hellions may get off that final shot. One more shot. Yes, it does go down. And that was a huge bonus, as now the Hellions and Banshees are going to go to town on this hatchery. So this may actually translate into real damage here in just a moment, as the Hellions have to be very careful. They want to make sure that if the Zerglings run up that ramp, the damage is dealt. 3 Queens now about to charge up. The Hellions now backing off. What is going to happen here? They're trying to finish off the Zerglings. The Banshee needs to play it very safe. Who is going to come out on top trying to finish off the Zerglings? The Zerglings going up against the Hellions. The Hellions want to go up against the Queens, as it looks like the Banshee is going to instead attack the main base. There is a Spore Crawler, though, as the Spore Crawler is going to finish off that Banshee. They're a very bad play, as a new Queen and a Spore Crawler finishes it off, and SuperNova pretty much lost all of his harassment. But taking a look at the situation right now, SuperNova does have that third base. He does have bunkers. He still needs to get Marine and Stim, but he was able to force a lot of Zerglings to be trained, so he's not too far behind. Now, Mutalisks are being added. We'll see what's going to happen, what the transition strategy will be. Overseer making its way across the map. The Overseer, even though there is an Overseer on the map, I don't believe that Killer really wanted to upgrade an Overseer unless he actually saw Cloak. So by SuperNova canceling his Cloak, he was able to save some resources and forced Killer to spend an additional 50 some odd gas as well. Or is it 100 gas? No, actually I forget the cost of upgrading an Overlord now that it's been trained. We are seeing an Overseer now just making its rounds. We do have a reactor on the starport, double training up medevacs. This is a very standard build that we've seen time and time again coming in from Terran. Perhaps we'll see the siege tanks with siege tech, as we are now going into infestors. Zerg players becoming very successful with infestors as of late, and being able to just hit pockets of Marines. Much more deadly than the Psystorm, as once the fungal growth does hit, there's not much, as a second fungal growth could come in as well. Overseer are going to get easily taken out, down to 2 hit points. There it goes, as currently just Marines and medevacs wandering around inside in the field. Now we are going to be getting into a little bit of a drop play, and more Marines trying to chase. It looks like it will be simply 1 medevac here, but this 1 Zergling will actually spot the medevac, so that is huge, as the Zerglings are now going to perhaps try to figure out what to do, infest, or perhaps try to intercept. The infestor may be able to get off a fungal growth. The medevac trying to fly far away, but the infestors do move at a very good speed, and there's a fungal growth, and Killer coming off with a very nice strategy here. 1 infested Terran, there is another fungal growth, so trading energy to destroy a fully loaded medevac. Nicely done, but an Overlord does get hunted down. Only 1 kill for that Viking so far. Now, a 4th base is being established as well. We'll see what will come of this. Marines now gathering in the center. I don't see... Oh, nope, 2 medevacs now trying to back off again. And I don't see an armory yet, so we will not have any additional weapons upgrade. Killer may be in trouble. He may end up losing a lot more overlords if he's not careful. The overlord does need to fly away, down to 35 hit points, 2 more shots, and it will go down. You can see a drop now happening over here on the right side of the map. Marine's gonna attempt to clean this up. No stim on those, finally stimming those Marines, but the Zerglings are gonna be able to get there in time, and the Marines gonna have to force to pick back up. Zerglings simply too much. 1-1 upgrades, 2-2 upgrades now underway. Meanwhile, 1-2 upgrades coming in for the Zerglings as SuperNova. It does have a slight food advantage, about 12, but a lot more Zerglings are being added as you now see another expansion being established by Killer. Killer doing a great job, but it is easily spotted right now. The Marines at the Xel'Naga Tower know about this as the Zerglings now trying to swarm it, and there's the fungal growth once more. Killer getting 2 chain fungal growth, going to finish this off. Marines trying to finish this here, and in comes some infested Terrans as well. Siege tanks now holding the center. So tank Marine against infestors, and we may perhaps have a drop into the Xel'Naga Tower here, or into that location here, as infested Terrans now being added. No fungal growth just quite yet. The medevac able to back off. The infested Terrans won't be able to shoot anything, but the damage has been, or some damage was done already as all those Marines were killed. Now siege tanks attempting to hold the center part of the map. We are going into Ultralist. Scanner sweeps now cleaning up creep tumors. Always very dangerous for Terran players to fight on creep, as medevac now picking up some units, and it looks like it will be a straight drop up onto the high ground, but it looks like it's already going to be canceled or handled. There's a fungal growth. Zerglings now coming in. The medevac getting sniped down by a queen, and beautifully played, beautifully handled, as there was still creep tumors there that actually spotted that drop. More Marines trying to come in. SuperNova deciding against it. He was able to either force a cancellation or destroy this hatchery here, but we'll see how SuperNova is going to come back into this. SuperNova is ahead in terms of overall economy, but it really feels like a Killer has been handling any harassment that has been tried, that's been tried by SuperNova so far. Now SuperNova coming in with 2-2 Marines, now trying to make its way in, trying to take down Queens or perhaps some infestors. You see a good split on all of those Marines, so it takes multiple fungal growths, but SuperNova still losing another medevac there. So far we haven't had any real large engagement, just a lot of small ones, as the total resources lost have not even broken 5,000 for either player. Marines now attempting to put pressure off over here. There is a fungal growth hitting off the medevac. The Marines attempting to take down the rocks. Siege tanks now coming in, and the siege tanks may be a problem. No, it looks like the siege tanks are backing off, perhaps trying to attack somewhere else. Marines are just patrolling the other 2 base locations, as this has turned into a north versus south battle here on Antigua Shipyard. Killer and SuperNova pretty much at the food cap already. Ultralists have very high armor, 5 armor, meaning that those Marines will essentially be dealing little to no damage at all. The Marines are going to be doing 3 damage per pop. It's really going to come down to whether or not those siege tanks will be able to do enough, as the Ultralists have 500 hit points each, meaning it will still take over 10 siege tank blasts in order to destroy them. Now in comes the attack now. This is a flank up on the high ground. Zerglings surrounding, taking down multiple units here. Ultra is trying to chomp in, able to do exactly that, and it looks like Killer has lost a lot of units already. SuperNova trying to hold on. More reinforcements coming in. There are a lot of infestors. The infestors are going to be the key here. If the infestors get taken out, those are the expensive units, and it looks like the Marines and the Marauders may be able to do exactly that. SuperNova holding on to the center and able to hold on to these siege tanks, able to keep this command center here, and as he should be able to transfer over some SCVs momentarily. Marines now looking to finish off, and the Overlord here. There are some Ultralists up on the high ground. The Ultralist needs to get focused down, and will it get focused down in time? Yes, it's already down to 49 hit points. The Queens now come in. Also, the Spine Crawler is taking a lot of damage. Ultralist getting transfused, but it may not be enough. Marines, Queens back over here, and wow, the one additional Ultralist really helping out. The medevacs now forced to retreat. We are sitting at 164 versus 164. Planetary Fortress being added as we are now going into 3-3 upgrades for Terran. Level 3 Carapace upgrades coming in for Zerg. Ultralisk will be very beefy with 6 armor. Meanwhile, the medevac down to 2 hit points has to be very careful as well. It can get destroyed in just a moment. Now trying to heal up the rest of those Marines and perhaps cause a little bit more harassment, but in comes the Ultralisk across the center again, using brute force to try to take control. High hit point units such as those Ultralisk moving very quickly, dealing 43 damage per attack. And now the Ultralisk simply charge in here. Siege tanks are on the defensive. Will it be enough? The Ultralisk do have level 2 weapons upgrade. And still, Ultralisk pushing up this ramp. The siege tanks trying to turn around, trying to fight back against all of these Ultralisk. Ultralisk are getting destroyed, but with no air or air banshees or perhaps some other unit, these Ultralisk are simply dealing way too much damage, pushing deep inside this attack line here and really breaking any sort of defense that SuperNova has tried so hard and so long to establish. Siege tanks are getting queued up very heavily as more and more Zerglings, and now Infestor is also adding on to this group. Siege tank able to get in some easy shots here, perhaps deal some damage, finish off some Zerglings. Infestors are pulling back as Zerglings are running inside the third base. SCVs will need to be called back over. SCVs, there is one planetary fortress here. The Infestors could easily just start fungal growthing the SCVs here and dealing the damage that way. There you go. One fungal growth and some infested Terrans to boot to try to finish off and deal the damage. So far, both sides about even now in terms of army, down to 130 from both of these players. Planetary Fortress getting in some kills, and now some siege tanks offering some additional help as well, as right now Killer in such a dominant situation. I believe his economy is higher. He is running off of more bases. Yes, it is. And you now another transfusion. So Killer really effectively using transfusions to save these expansions. Now off over here, Killer, knowing that he needs more minerals and not harvesting gas, he's already banking 2,000 gas. As we now see a sensor tower come into play as well. So far, this Overlord has not been shot down. More units are still being retrained, reproduced. 7 Marines being trained at a time. Infested Terrans, and Infestors just getting taken down by some Marauders and some Marines. The Marauders and Marines are upgraded 3-3, able to destroy Infestors very easily. But it's still been these Ultralisks. These Ultralisks have been very difficult to destroy. Zergling's now trying to swarm in. There's a fungal growth, able to take down so many of these Marines. A fungal growth, a very powerful spell that Zerg players have really been capitalizing as of late. Now, Queens and Overlords still off over here. Ultralisk now attempting to pull back. We'll see what's going to happen here. There's a Marauder and 2 Marines that try to destroy a hatchery if it tries to be placed down, but the Ultralisks are now coming in. The Ultralisk is going to chomp away through all of these Marines, as the medevac simply going to perhaps try to do another drop here. There are Infestors and Zerglings, and Killer just having with so many spine crawlers. That's one thing that a lot of Zerg players don't normally like to use, but it is perhaps one of their greatest defenses. Spine crawlers deal a lot of damage, better damage than photon cannons, and they don't cost food, similar to bunkers. So with so many bunkers, so many spine crawlers all across the map, drops have been pretty much neutralized, as we now see in Banelings being added. So Banelings, 22 Banelings being added. Those Banelings are gonna just simply roll into this planetary fortress and perhaps destroy it, and that may be the unraveling that we need to see. Baneling movement speed already completed. Ultralisk may choke up a lot of that damage. Marines getting destroyed there. Perhaps some creep tumors could be added as well, as the Marines and the Marauders are looking to break open this side here. So we'll see what's going to happen. Marines and Marauders will be able to take down those destructible rocks finally, but in comes the push that we've been waiting for here. Infested Terrans Infestors now also have Burrow, so the Burrow now coming in as well, and we'll see who is going to end up getting destroyed here. This Infestors now dropping infested Terrans, taking down so many of the siege tanks. SuperNova is in trouble. All of these siege tanks will get taken out in just a moment, as now we have Ultralisk trying to take the high ground. Infestors could get off a fungal growth across tightly packed group of Marines there, but it actually looks like SuperNova came out ahead. The SCVs still repairing the planetary fortress. Nicely done to save all of these units, as now this orbital command very low on mineral patches. There's not very many infestors or not very much energy in these infestors. Some infested Terrans will be dropped down. The infested Terrans don't even have weapons upgrade, so we'll see how much damage those infestors are able to do as the SCVs are making their way over. The infested Terrans do have armor though, so 3 base armor, minimizing the damage that these SCVs can actually deal. SCVs also have 3 armor, so I guess it's an even trade there, as Killer now re-macroing up. But we also see that SuperNova very, very high on food, so still can't tell who has the advantage. It looks like Killer is going to be able to shut down one hatchery and then another hatchery here and down over here as well. So things are actually looking very good for Killer, as the Marines going to be able to take down the hatchery. Hatchery has gone. Broodlings and drones now making their way over. The Ultralisk chomping at the bit, able to get some damage in. Ultralisk now making their way off to the north. Is it going to be enough? The Medivacs will allow for a very, very quick escape, as the Ultralisk now taking down siege tank after siege tank, and now also taking down some of these Marines. Drones doing that walk of shame all the way back home. There are some infested Terrans here, enough to drop 5. That would be enough to perhaps start actually damaging this, as the Marines and the siege tanks once again try to re-engage. There is a fungal growth dealing a lot of damage, stopping the Marines from being able to stim back any further. Ultralisk now need to retreat, but with stim on those Marauders and Marines, a lot of damage has already been dealt. Now, drones now attempting to run away. There are Ultralisks up here on the high ground. Planetary Fortress, some mineral patches have been mined, as the Ultralisks are going to come in and get a very quick surround on this. The Infestors not quite sure why they are there. Perhaps there to handle any Marines, but in comes a straight brute force attack coming in from SuperNova. And SuperNova, after getting his main line breached so many times, now coming in with a very effective 2-0 mech force plus 3-3-3 Marauders and Marines. And it looks like Killer is in trouble. Killer now transferring all the drones over here. That is a lot of drones. This hatchery will finally fall. Marines and Marauders able to break the siege line. And beautifully done by SuperNova now, as he is just using the planetary fortresses very effectively. You can see that there are some infested Terrans here. Perhaps if the infestors actually made their way into the production line of SuperNova and destroyed it, he could actually start winning this war of attrition. But Killer is already very, very low on units, and he cannot really deal with this attack force. An 80 food advantage, and SuperNova able to somehow save this, as Ultralisks now are trying to chomp in, trying to finish down all of the Marines. It looks like there are still some Ultralisks left. Some Marines will get taken down here, but a lot of units have already been destroyed. Infested Terrans will be popping up in just a moment, taking down siege tank after siege tank. Is it going to be enough though? It looks like that siege tank may fall down to 20 some odd hit points. It gets taken out, but it is now up to 166 compared to 60, as more units still being trained and rallied into the main base here. SuperNova has been rallying all of his units and continuing to play them out very well. Perhaps if the infestors had taken down some of the production buildings, it would have been a different story. But Killer losing game 1 here on Antigua Shipyard. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for game 2.